buddy. All right. This is Ted Cruz getting absolutely bodied by Tucker Carlson. Let's watch.
Wouldn't trade that America for the one we live in now. There's not one person, I don't think.
Oh, sure.
But I mean, just the basic metrics, debt, suicide rate, life expectancy. I wonder why after that victory, America didn't thrive in the way that we thought that it would, that I thought that it would. My family was involved in that. I mean, we were very focused on it in my house. Like,
yeah.
We won. And I wonder two things. Why didn't the United States kind of declare victory and make some sort of arrangement with Russia that allowed like mutual prosperity rather than continuing a Cold War? And second, I wonder why the United States didn't get a lot better. Like, why don't we have better infrastructure? Why don't we have fewer homeless? Why do we have all these drugs? Like, if we won, why does our country look like this? I walked across from Union Station this morning, as you do, I'm sure, every day. And all these people lying in the street and sleeping outside. It's like, what is that?
We're sorry to say it, but this is not a very safe country. Walk through Oakland or Philadelphia. Yeah.
I'm focused on my neighbor's kids. It's like I'm neglecting my own kids. And there's a sense in which the Congress is neglecting the country that elected them in favor of this relentless focus on other people's problems. That's the way it feels as an American.
Look, there are lots of problems in America that we need to fix. Why is D.C. a pit? Because you have a mayor and a Democrat city council that won't let police officers arrest bad guys. And in every city you see across the country, whether it's New York, whether it's Chicago, whether it's L.A., whether it's San Francisco, if you have Democrats, we see the L.A. riots where they won't let people be arrested. All right.
Then why not work in regime change here? Why not use the bully pulpit?
I do. What do you think I do every day? And
I've never seen a Republican senator stand up and say, I just walked to work this morning over people dying of drug ODs. We're going to shut this place down unless they fix it. They're mad about Putin. Like, what did Putin do to Washington? Nothing.
Look, in terms of regime change, let's talk this week. The riots in L.A., I've made very clear that the cause of those riots are Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass. And when you elect communists who hate America, who stop law enforcement from arresting criminals, you get what you get on the street.
Amen, I agree.
My in-laws are Californians, and they're wonderful people. Heidi grew up on the Central Coast of California. And I remember I was texting with my mother-in-law, and I think I sent her a video of criminals going to a store and just looting in California. And her response, she said something like, well, this is really terrible. I wish we could. It's a shame we can't do anything about this. I said, yes, you can. Go in and arrest them. Throw their butts in jail. Put them in handcuffs.
100%.
And it stops.
Exactly.
And so we know how to fix these things. And D.C. is, I think D.C. voted, if I remember right, 92% Democrat. Democrat policies don't work, and they destroy every community that they are in charge of.
Then why don't Republicans assert their constitutional authority over the city? Don't they control the Congress?
Yes, I'd be all for it.
Who's against it? Do you think?
Susan Collins is really vocally against it. So on questions of home rule, so for example, let's take an issue you and I care a lot about, the COVID lockdowns. I had a couple of years ago in the middle of them. D.C. was proposing, the D.C. school district was proposing throwing out of school any child that was not vaccinated. And at the time, if I remember correctly, it was something like 40% of the African-American students in D.C. were not vaccinated. So they were talking about literally throwing out 40% of the kids at public school. And so I had a vote on the Senate floor to say, look, they can't throw kids out of school for this. And we ended up having a big argument, and part of the argument was home rule, where there were, and Susan was the most vocal Republican that's like, no, we have to let D.C. run. And I'm like, why?
What's up, guys?
Constitution gives us the power to do
really
it.
Good.
And it ended up, by the way, every single Democrat, all of them, voted in favor of the D.C. public schools being able to throw out 40% of the black kids from school. And I said, look, you throw a kid out of school, you got a 14, 15-year-old boy, you throw him out of school, you know what's going to happen next. He's going to join a gang. He's going to engage in crimes. He's going to engage in drugs. He could be dead within 5 years.
It gets really heated.
If that kid doesn't get an education. And the Democrats were more than happy to say, we don't care. Right now, our religion is get the vaccine or to hell with you.
But can you see, I mean, once again, I couldn't agree with you more, but can you feel the frustration of people, including your voters, every American, at the emphasis on foreign countries and the threat we supposedly face, a lot of which is fake, obviously, over the kind of slowly unfolding tragedy of what's happening to our country? The dollars spent, the aid packages to Ukraine to pay the retirement of civil servants in a country that we have nothing to do with, the endless support for Israel, very expensive. When people are literally buying groceries on credit in the United States, can you feel like it's nothing against Ukraine or Israel or any other country?
All right, let's stop. You said the support for Israel very expensive. How much support do we give to Israel?
Well, you tell me. You vote for it.
Yeah, it's about $3 billion a year is the military assistance.
Is that the only assistance?
Yeah, we just have military assistance. Israel does not have additional assistance. There's an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, and it's $3 billion a year.
So what does it cost?
Only $3 billion. That's it. No bit. That's not even that much.
Costing to support the bombing campaign to protect Israel right now from Iran?
So I don't know right now, but I'll tell you this. Let's go back to the touchstone on foreign policy, American interest. Our support, our military support for Israel is massively in America's national security
But what
interest,
does it
and
cost?
it benefits us enormously.
Well, before we can make independent judgments about whether or not that's true, and I'm certainly open to it, I think we need to know what it costs. So what's the annual cost of defending Israel? Do you know?
$3 billion a year.
No, that's the aid. But I mean, the cost of the weapons, for example, the cost of U.S. personnel there, the cost of moving ships to the region, which we're doing right now, the cost of moving tankers to the region, all of that. Do we know what the cost is?
So look, the last week, I don't know, and there's some lag when the administration, under the Constitution, the commander-in-chief has control of the armed forces, and so President Trump has made some decisions that we'll know the cost over time, but I don't know the last week. I don't have visibility on that. The annual cost is $3 billion. It's a 10-year memorandum of understanding, and that's the principal driver of the cost. But let me make a point. We get massive benefits from Israel. Israel shares the Mossad is one of the best intelligence sources on the planet. The enemies of Israel, the people who hate Israel, they all hate us. It's almost a perfect overlap. And so if we tried to recreate, if we're just trying to defend America, we tried to recreate the national security benefits of our alliance with Israel, it would cost, I don't know, $30 billion, $300 billion.
So can you elaborate? And again, I'm going into this as someone who's always liked Israel and still does. But I also think at this point, given where we are, it's fair to ask rational questions about what the benefits are.
Good.
So does Mossad share all of its intelligence with us?
Oh, probably not, but they share a lot. We don't share all of our intelligence with them, but we share a lot. It's a close alliance.
Do they spy domestically in the United States?
Oh, they probably do, and we do as well. And friends and allies spy on each other, and I assume all of our allies spy on us.
And that's okay with you?
You know what? One of the things about being a conservative is that you're not naive and utopian. You don't think humans are all... Part of the reason socialism doesn't work is the mantra from each according to his abilities to each according to his needs doesn't work. As a conservative, I assume people act in their rational self-interest. It's why the free market works. So happens Iran's not very good at it. And so but
by the way, this is a sidebar, but I just can't resist. The Prime Minister of Israel said that Iran tried to assassinate Donald Trump twice.
Yeah, I read your newsletter this morning, and
But do you believe that's true?
Again, I think it was sort of a word game. What is true is Iran is trying to assassinate Donald J. Trump, and they have hired hitmen. Now, you pointed out...
No, he said that they have tried twice to kill him, and I don't know that... I don't have any evidence that's true, but I sort of wonder if that is true. Why aren't we at war with them already?
Okay. And I read your newsletter this morning, and I thought it was playing word games to draw a political point.
How's that a word game? It's my president. And
can I tell you?
Yeah, please.
Okay. You rightly pointed out there's no evidence that this clown in Butler, Pennsylvania, who shot the president was working for the Iranians. I don't think he was. There's no evidence of that. Although I would like to know more about who he was and what's going on. But I don't find it plausible that he was working for the Iranians. So was that caused by the Iranians? No. But what is true, and what your newsletter didn't acknowledge, is it true or false that Iran is currently trying to murder Donald J. Trump and has paid hitmen to do so?
Well, that's the question, and I don't know the Butler, Pennsylvania thing.
Pennsylvania.
Let's just put that aside. I don't know.
So Netanyahu misspoke when he said those two assassinations were because of Iran. But what he was saying that is right is they're actively trying to murder Donald J. Trump.
Is there? Okay, so you're aware of a plot to kill Trump?
Yes. That Iran is paying for. And by the way...
Wait, when?
It has been over the last, I'd say, 18 months to 2 years.
In the United States?
In the United States, yes. And let me point out...
Has anyone been arrested?
For the Trump attempted assassination, no, but they are also actively paying Iranian hitmen to murder Mike Pompeo when he was President Trump's first Secretary of State, the first term rather, John Bolton when John Bolton was National Security Advisor to President Trump, and a guy named Brian Hook, who was Assistant Secretary of State.
Right.
During the Biden administration.
Wait, but hold on. Can we go back to Donald Trump because he's the president? No, it's a big deal. What do you mean? When no one has been arrested for these assassination attempts on Trump.
Yes.
They've hired hitmen. How do we know that?
All right, let me break it down. People have been arrested. So the reason I brought up Pompeo, Bolton, and Hook, who are under active assassination attempts because of their service in the first Trump administration, under the Biden
administration. Well, they say that. I've never seen any evidence of it.
Can I give you the evidence?
Well, let's just stick with Trump.
No, because these are interrelated. So let me make a bloody point. Under the Biden administration, the State Department was spending $2 million a month providing security for Pompeo, Bolton, and Hook. And they did arrest Iranian hitmen at John Bolton's apartment complex who rented, I think, the apartment next to him and were actively trying to assassinate him, and they went and arrested them. So, yes, they caught Iranian hitmen. Now, it so happens Iran's not very good at it. And so they are actively trying. And in fact,
but what about Trump? He's the president. If there's a plot to kill Trump by the Iranians,
okay, so you dispute that the Iranians are trying to kill Trump?
Of course. I mean, that's the most important question. The Prime Minister of Israel just said there have been 2 assassination attempts against Donald Trump by the Iranians. And I think it's a very fair question, maybe you disagree, to ask, what are you talking about?
Okay. And I agree with you that he misspoke.
So there weren't those 2 attempts?
There were 2 attempts, but the clown in Butler, Pennsylvania, and the other guy on the golf course were not connected to the Iranians. That's the part that he misspoke. But by the way, when you speak all the time, occasionally, what he said that was accurate is that Iran is actively trying to murder Donald J. Trump and has paid hitmen.
Okay, but that's fine.
And he was conflating it with the 2 attempts.
I understand. But I just want to pull that thread because it's so important. I voted for Donald Trump. I campaigned for Donald Trump. Yeah. He's our president. And we're on the cusp of a war. So if there's evidence that Iran paid hitmen to kill Donald Trump and is currently doing that, where's that? Like, what are you even talking? I've never heard that before.
Okay.
Where's the evidence? Who are these people? Why haven't they been arrested? Why are we not at war with Iran?
That's a great question to ask.
How do you know that that's true?
We know that it's true because we have been told that by the military and our intelligence community for the last 2 years.
We meaning who?
I don't think they're very effective. I do think we should, by the way, America is supporting...
You're willing to take that risk?
I think we should protect the president and we should take out our enemies.
Well,
Israel is doing that right now.
But aren't they? Why would we outsource it to Israel if they're trying to...
Your first question was, why are you for regime change? That's a pretty good example of why I'm for regime change.
Okay, so you're saying we should just go in and take out the government of Iran. No. Why would we outsource it to Israel if they're trying to murder our president? Okay, you sound like the isolationist.
What I'm saying on any military judgment is there needs to be a cost-benefit analysis of what are the risks versus what are the benefits. In this instance, I think it is enormously in America's interest to do what Israel is doing right now, take out Iran's senior military leadership and take out their nuclear capacity. That is benefiting America, and it is a good risk-reward. I would oppose invading Iran and putting boots on the ground to topple the government. If the risk got severe enough, I would support that, but I think the relative risk is not severe enough to justify that step at this time. What I would absolutely oppose under any circumstances is invading Iran and then staying and trying to turn them into a democracy. And part of where Iraq really went off the rails is not only did we topple someone who was fighting radical Islamic terrorists, who was a bad guy, but then we tried the vision of interventionists. It actually overlaps with the vision of a lot of Democrats. Let's go promote democracy in the world.
I agree.
And it is our military's job to kill the bad guys, to defend America. It's not their job to defend international norms. It's not their job. So I have zero desire for the U.S. military to turn Iran into Switzerland. Look, would it be nice if they suddenly became Switzerland? Sure. If I could wave a magic wand, great. But I'm not going to send your kids or my kids to be in front of guns to go make that happen.
Well, bless you for that. I think that is the lesson that I learned from Iraq. I promoted that war. apparently, unlike you. I was dumber. And I think that you just articulated the main lesson of it, which is it's hard to do that, and we're not good at it.
But I will, and so we are agreeing on that. I will say as a corollary,
vehemently agreeing.
As a corollary, that doesn't mean that horrible, evil dictators are okay. And going back to Reagan and the Cold War, we have lots of weapons. I am happy to highlight the brutality, the oppression, the human rights abuses of regimes, even though I don't want to invade them, because I think the bully pulpit of American leadership is really powerful. And I think dictatorships are terrified. So I've spent 13 years in the Senate. One of the things I do frequently is highlight dissidents in Iran and North Korea and China, in Venezuela. People are being tortured. Miriam Ibrahim in Sudan, who was sentenced to 100 lashes and then to be killed for the crime of being a Christian. And I repeatedly went to the Senate floor and shined a light on the government of Sudan. It was corrupt. It was evil. I practically begged Barack Obama, say her name. Ultimately,
I felt that way with the J6 prisoners. Yeah.
Look, yes. And we,
There you go.
look, there is power to speaking out. And ultimately, the international, Obama never did say her name. He would not say her name. Ultimately, there was enough international condemnation. The government of Sudan let her go. And so she was not executed. And I actually, I met her. So she had a 2-year-old son, Martin, and she gave birth to a little girl named Maya. And she was in leg irons in prison waiting for the death sentence. They were not going to kill her until she gave birth. And they told her, we will not kill you if you will renounce Jesus. And she refused. And I met her. She was in D.C. speaking at a conference after she was released, obviously. And I asked her, she's a tiny woman, very small woman. I asked her, I said, when you were in that prison cell with your kids, how did you have the strength not to just give in to despair? I mean, I've never been threatened with murder unless I renounce my faith. And she just said to me with a real fallen, I would use economic sanctions and I would use moral suasion to try to effectuate
But if you
regime
topple,
change.
okay, so you topple the regime and by whatever means, what happens then? How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
Oh, this is
At
the
all?
good part.
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
Ooh,
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay.
ouch.
Yeah,
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's,
Well, because-
it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why
Well,
is
because
that
if
relevant?
you don't know anything about the country,
I didn't say I don't know anything about
okay,
them.
what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and
What percent?
predominantly Shia. Okay,
No,
this is cute.
it's not
Okay.
even. You don't know anything about Iran, so
Okay,
actually,
I
the
am not
country.
the Tucker Carlson
No, but
expert on Iran.
You're a
who
senator
says,
who's calling
Okay,
for the
you're the one who
overthrow of the
claims-
government.
you're the
and
one
you
who
don't know
claims-
anything about the
This is where it
country.
gets-
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump.
No,
You're the
I'm
one
not saying that.
who can't figure out
I'm
if it was
saying
a
you
good
don't
idea to kill
believe-
General Soleimani, and you
don't
said it was bad.
believe they're trying to murder Trump.
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really
we are
believe that,
carrying out military strikes today.
you said Israel was.
Right, with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive
No,
capacity.
we're not
at all.
bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting
This is high
Israel.
stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war
we're-
with Iran right now, people are listening.
Okay, we are not bombing them.
Oh, okay.
Israel is bombing them. And hey, why do you do the snide? Oh, okay.
What do you mean? Because this is super high stakes
sweating
stuff.
hard.
This is a huge country that borders a lot of other important countries. A lot of the world's energy comes from there.
So
we
let-
have.
let me
you
ask
don't
you,
want
Tucker,
another disaster. You don't want to be
Tucker,
reckless.
the Ayatollah refers to Israel as the little Satan and America as the great
know.
Satan. Do you believe him when he says it's the great Satan?
course
Do
I
you
believe-
think?
of course I
do you
believe
think if
him.
the Ayatollah could murder both of us right now that he would? I do. I believe him.
Okay, I assume no good faith on the part of the Ayatollah.
No, not
and if
good
your
faith.
implication
No,
is like
it's not
I'm
good
pro
faith.
Ayatollah or
No,
something.
no.